All right, up next, early reviews from the Venice Film Festival screenings of The Joker, Folie, Deux. The sequel to 2019's Joker hit the internet last week with the response to the musical follow-up decidedly mixed. Critics seem divided on the film's uneven tone, with criticisms citing a plodding narrative and underutilization of Lady Gaga. Positive takes celebrated the performances of Phoenix and Gaga, as well as Philip's direction. The first film had its detractors and went on to become the first rated R movie to gross $1 billion at the box office. Are these muted first reviews enough to get the last laugh this time?
Yeah, Joker 2 is going to be a really interesting test, I think, at not only the box office, but just critics and how critics respond to films. You know, at this point, we've got a very small number of reviews. A lot of people for like big sites and stuff haven't gotten a chance to review Joker, Folie, Deux yet. This is just impressions from the Venice Film Festival, but it should be said that the reviews for the first Joker were not great at the beginning, and then people started to warm up to it as time went on. It had a strong audience reaction, like didn't really evoke much of a critic reaction in terms of like positive reviews, but the audience score really drove it. And I think what makes this one a little bit different is the last one, the reviews were that the movie would be controversial, right? Like there was a lot of reviews about this movie is going to inspire violence, or this movie is going to cause people to, you know, like that was kind of the driving conversation. And that was why a lot of critics dogged on it early, I think, is because they felt like it was, in a sense, going to be some sort of dangerous movie or something. And it kind of, I think, drove the conversation, at least from a box office perspective, like positively, because people wanted to see it. Like there was a lot of that like stirring up people going to see the film. So there was the reviews didn't really hurt it, I guess, necessarily. But the difference I see with this one is there's kind of two problems with the reviews. And one is that a lot of the reviews are just that the film is meh, you know, like it's not that it's like going to be super controversial or whatever. It's just kind of like, I wasn't really that invested. And then the second one is that that Lady Gaga is not featured as much as a true co-lead as maybe the trailers would have you believe, which some of the critics took issue with. Her performance was good, but she was just not on screen as much as you maybe think that she will be. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the rest of the public get their hands on this movie and they really get to dive into it and see what they think, and we start to get feedback from the general public about how they feel about it. Premiering at the Venice Film Festival, I don't think is going to ultimately do great things for the movie. The ending has already leaked, so be very careful out there if you're sensitive to spoilers. Like people are already talking about the ending, throwing out spoilers to the ending, and that's never good. Like that's never good for the conversation of movie, especially when the ending is going to be somewhat controversial, which I haven't seen spoilers, but at least that's what I've heard about it, is that the ending is going to be something that maybe not everybody is going to want to see in a theater necessarily. So I think I kind of see a lot of shades of the first Joker here, in that the critics didn't really know what to do with it. And sometimes critics can smell blood in the water. And when something is like, it's not very good, all of a sudden everybody dogpiles on it. It's not very good. But then when the public sees it, they come around to it. And so I think, like, will it reach $1 billion? I don't know, maybe, but I don't think it has to. Like, I think it just kind of like, if it's in that $800 million range or something, I think you consider it a success and you can walk away from it. Warner Brothers can walk away from it saying like, all right, we're good. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating movie once those like main reviews start to hit from just the general public.
I think we've got an Aquaman 2 on our hands.
I don't know if it's going to be that bad.
Not as bad as Aquaman 2.
Aquaman 2 was a bomb.
Yeah, no, let me qualify that. I think that Aquaman 2 had a lot of other things going against it, but I think that the Joker and Aquaman 1 both lived at this time. They were put out a year apart, less than a year apart, and they both came out in like the 2018-2019 window of like the everything is making $1 billion. If it is a comic book IP, it is making $1 billion. And I always thought that was overperformance for Aquaman, and I always thought it was an overperformance for Joker. Anyway, I really think that like the Joker 1 overperformed, and I think the amount they invested in Joker 2 is crazy. I think this will do well, but I don't think it's going to do anywhere near $1 billion. But things are doing well this whole year, so I think the box office is back. Like, who knows? But I just don't. I see it making like, you know, $500 million instead of $1 billion, something like that, which is not bad.
When Joker came out too, it was like a really unique thing. And now with Joker 2, like, does it do it enough to set itself apart from Joker 1? Like, we don't know yet. None of us have seen it, but that's a question that's going to have to be answered. Like, does it provide a unique thing that you have to go see in a theater? Or can you just wait for streaming? You know, like, it's going to have to answer for that.
It feels like they know that, and they've gone into it with that expectation of needing to plus it, with it being a musical and it having Gaga in it, and like tackling Harley Quinn and everything. Like, I think they know they need to go to the next level and do something special. But I think the audience that wanted to see Joker, especially the audience that loved the first Joker, I don't know that the same audience that wants to see a musical featuring Gaga. Like, it just feels very different. Sometimes that kind of counterintuitive thing can work because you pull in two audiences. So who knows? Maybe the Gaga fans will come out in force and it'll be really, really strong.
Yeah, I don't see this one performing like other musicals. Like, I don't think this is going to be like a Greatest Showman situation where people are going back for repeat viewings to like sing along with the songs. We know it's a jukebox musical, but I fully acknowledge that I exist within a bubble when it comes to being very aware of, like, you know, film discourse in the online space. And I feel like I have trained myself, and I feel like a lot of other people have gotten to the point where they kind of know how to take reviews. It's like, don't take reviews at face value, especially like Rotten Tomatoes. That's an aggregator. So just because a movie comes in fresh or rotten doesn't say a lot about the actual quality of the movie when it comes to an individual take. So for myself, I have curated, you know, about 4 or 5 reviewers that I kind of know their sensibilities. I know their taste align with my own, and none of those reviewers have had the opportunity to see it. So these reviews don't really mean a lot to me. They don't have a lot of weight. I was a little startled, I will say, when I was on social media and I saw IGN put it like a 7. It felt like a little bit of a slap to the face. I was like, wow, I wasn't, you know, 7's not terrible, but it really felt muted, like we've said here. So, I will be curious to see, once more people get eyeballs on this thing, what kind of conversation is going to be going around it, because I have not watched the original Joker from 2019 since I saw it the first time, and that's because I found it to be such a heavy and weighty experience. And I remember the kind of fervor and feeling around it. Like, I remember seeing a noticeable uptick in security at my theater. Like, there were security guards posted like right outside the theater itself. So definitely an interesting movie. And I think, Matt, you brought up the point about like the first movie overperforming. I agree with you more about Aquaman kind of being lumped in that situation. I feel like what 2019 Joker had going for it and what this film has going for it as well is that it's such an antithesis to what we've seen, even the fact that it is a musical. So I'm still holding out hope, and I will, you know, go see this thing for myself, and you know we're going to talk about it here once we've all seen it. So.
We're talking about it without seeing it, which is really hard to do. I just watched the first one this year, and one of the reviews that's quoted in the article we used called Joker Folie plodding. And I think you can say that a little bit about the 2019 one. I thought it was 100%. A great film. Yeah, I really liked it. I think it was unique and cool, but there are parts of it that are plodding. And so for a reviewer to say that, it's kind of like, well, I just watched it a few months ago and I feel like that's actually on par. I think that what this film has going for it is not just Lady Gaga, but Joaquin Phoenix. I think people who are movie watchers, if they see that Joaquin Phoenix is in something, they want to go see it because he's kind of got, you know, a cult following as an actor. He does the extreme things. He does things that are all over the board, from Gladiator back in his youth to, you know, the Johnny Cash movie, Walk the Line. And so I think that the draw is definitely him, and I think the draw is Lady Gaga. And for a review to say that she's not in it as much as they thought she would be, we even said on this show, like, this is going to be Arthur having his delusions, right? He's in a mental state. We don't know that her character is even real. Right. So, you know, it's kind of like, if it's that situation, well, then, you know, you've set yourself up for those expectations going in, is what that review sounds like to me. So I don't know. I think that those all sound kind of harsh for something that's kind of an art house type movie in the superhero genre, which is weird in itself. And so it's going to be across the board with reviews. And I'm looking forward to it because I think it just looks really interesting. I remember when the trailer dropped and we talked about it on the show, and we were all like, wow, this looks fantastic. So that's my that's where I'm going in with it.
Sometimes critics go into these types of movies with their minds made up a little bit too, like if they didn't like the first Joker, it can kind of be hard for them to jump a hurdle for the second one, right? To kind of separate the two. If they saw the first Joker as, like we said, like controversial because it could be dangerous or it could inspire, people who are violent or whatever, and they wrote that in 2019, they're probably not like psyched about a second one of those. So it's like everybody said, you really have to take all these with a grain of salt. We got to wait until the general reviews get out there, and then ultimately you got to wait till you see it yourself, right, to really step away and see how you feel about it. But it's first Joker had the same problem, and look what it did. So we'll see about Joker 2.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, like, I think I spoke a little negatively about it, and was purely talking about box office numbers. I just think it over from box office. I think the movie was really interesting and really good and evocative, and I think this one looks really good and evocative too. So I'm excited for the actual movie. I didn't want my negativity about the box office to sound like I'm not excited about the movie.
I'd be remiss if I did not mention that friend of the show, Bill Bria, did see the movie, and we don't have a full review, but his take was positive.
I trust Bill.
Yeah.